Item number 7A is the Sheriff's Department budget review.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, and thank you for keeping Steve Schmiegel in your thoughts and prayers during this difficult time for him and his family. I'm going to do my best to fill in today on short notice for the Sheriff's Department, so we'll get started with that. For those of you who haven't been on the board for a long time, of course, you're I'm sure well aware anyway that the Sheriff's Department is the largest department in the general fund, encompassing roughly $70 million of recommended budget for 2018. It's up about 1.5% from the 2017 amended. And if you're following along in your budget books, you can see that those expenses on page C63. And then additionally on page C66, you can see the cost broken down by program. The Sheriff's Department has 528.5 FTEs split among major services, which is outlined in your budget booklet on page C64. The major ones, of course, are jail, 237.5 FTEs, township road patrols, 122 FTEs, and county road patrol, 84. But the full list is in the budget document for you. As to detail what we're recommending today, 4 total positions for the Sheriff's Department, 2 deputies at a combined cost for both of them of $177,441, 2 corrections officers at a combined total of $153,254. We're also recommending an increase in overtime of $500,000, which is important to note that overtime in previous years has been exceeding budget each year. So this is more an adjustment to actual overtime in previous years and what we project to be for 2017, not necessarily an expected operational increase. They're already incurring these charges. We're just catching up the budget with this increase. We believe that the 4 positions that we're recommending adding will go a long way to reduce future increases or hopefully eliminate future increases in overtime. Next is law enforcement supplies. The department requested $85,000, but we did only increase that by $10,000. We are recommending that drug forfeiture funds pay for the balance of that. Equipment purchases, the same justification for a partial recommendation of their request. An increase of $66,000 is what we're recommending there. A request of $166,000 was not funded. Jail funding recommendations, on the other hand, were fully funded as requested. An increase in clothing and bedding of $60,000, increased prisoner meals of $47,000, and increased jail medical expenses of $500,000. And with that, I'll turn it over to the sheriff for his presentation.
Are there any questions for Mr. Adair?
I'm sorry, I was flipping pages. 2 correctional officers. What are the new positions you're asking for? 2 correctional officers, if you could repeat them.
Yes, 2 correctional officers and 2 deputies.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? And I'm sorry, I neglected to introduce Mr. Adair. Mr. Adair is the Deputy Director of the Finance Department. Sheriff Wickersham?
Well, good afternoon. As Mr. Adair said, he laid out what we requested, what we received. There was a few things that we could dispute back and forth with the Finance Department. But to do the presentation here, you know, our goal when we were putting this budget together was twofold. One, to try and reduce our overtime and also reduce our order overs of employees at the Sheriff's Office that work an 8-hour shift and, you know, an hour before they're getting ready to go home and have dinner with their family, they get ordered over. Just historically, right? I mean, not historically, but right now, the average employee, corrections officer, or deputy sheriff at the Sheriff's Office has been ordered over 23 times. Okay, so what is really causing that? The 2 deputy positions, I'll jump around here, please bear with me. The 2 deputy positions were going to be added to the court transport. Currently, we have 14 deputies that are assigned to prisoner transport. That's taking prisoners throughout the county to all the district courts in which you guys represent, also to doctor's appointments and dialysis and anything that they need outside of the facility. So right now we have 14 budgeted deputies, so that's 7 vans that run Monday through Friday. But I can tell you between Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, which are big court days, especially in Warren, Roseville, Clinton Township, sometimes we have to roll 14, 15 vans, so we're doubling it. There are times the whole midnight shift does not go home. They have to work and get these prisoners to the courts. So it's really putting a strain on our personnel. This year has really been the worst because of the amount of ordered over, sometimes 3 days in a row. I actually had to bring some people back that I had on in some of my specialty units just to stop basically the bleeding of overtime there and the safety of my people that are working. We got 2 deputies that'll be added to the transport division. The 2 corrections deputies will help out, especially in our jail mental health unit, one of our higher risk operations there inside the jail. So the increase in overtime budget, just by way of history, in 2015, we were allocated $2.9 million. We spent $3.9 million. 2016, $2.9 million. We spent $4.5. Last year, when I was in front of this board, I asked, again, we received $3.5 million, knowing that we were not going to meet that goal. I asked for $4 million, but did not get that. So with the 3.5 that we currently have, year to date, we have spent 3.2 million. We're at 88.4%, and we have 4 months to go. So I could tell this board that in the overtime, we will definitely be going over. So what's causing our overtime issue? The high amount of retirements that we've been experiencing over the last 2 years. Terminations and resignations at the department. People are coming in, staying and realizing this job isn't for them and moving on to a different career or a different organization or agency throughout the state. Training is really a big cause of the overtime. When these individuals retire, we have to replace them. Right now I have 14 people in the police academy for 17 weeks to get trained so I can put them out on the road. That's 14 positions in the jail and dispatch that I got to backfill with overtime. A corrections academy, within 1 year data hire, we have to send corrections officers to a corrections academy. It's a 4-week academy. So we lose individuals there and we have to backfill. Due to these retirements, a lot of these individuals that are retired had special training, whether it's accident reconstruction, drug, evidence technicians. We have to train the new people coming in and get them up to speed so we can service our community. I spoke about the transport increases, hospital transports. I don't think this board, I think you do know that we have a lot more inmates that are leaving the jail. I mean, I can't go one day where I don't hear the ambulance coming to the jail and having a car come because the car's got to go with the prisoner and the hospital guards. I think I talked to you guys before. At one point, excuse me, we had 9 inmates in the hospital, and that requires 9 deputy sheriffs to guard them. So I talked about 14 in the police academy. Currently, we have 11 deputy slots that are vacant. Hopefully, when these 14 graduate, we can fill those spots. Currently, 7 corrections deputies that are vacant. 3 dispatchers we're working on filling, and a dispatch supervisor. Projecting out, well, let's talk about historically on a shift relief factor that the county has used, and really it's been outdated, and we're working with Steve Schmiegel's office. They use a 1.4 shift relief factor for the jail. Other communities are using a 1.7, and really what that does is it's taking into account the leave days of what it's going to take to backfill these leave days. And using the 1.4, that only takes into account the leave days. If anybody uses any benefit time with the corrections deputies, it's going to create an overtime situation in the jail. So if they go on vacation, they take sick time, we send them out to training, it's causing us to backfill with overtime within the facility. And finally, doing projections for the next 3 years. In 2018, we have 13 individual positions that'll be eligible for retirement. 2019, 17 positions, and 2020, 15. So we're going to have to try and stay ahead of the curve and get individuals into the sheriff's office. And really the training aspect is when I take a person from either the jail or from dispatch and promote them to deputy sheriff and put them out on the road. If they haven't gone through a police academy, then it's my responsibility. And I think I've talked about this before. 5 years ago, 6 years, we were getting individuals that would put themselves through the police academy, apply for our positions in the jail, and when the time came to promote, all I had to do was promote them, give them a 3-month training FTO program, and they'd be good deputies ready to go. We're not getting those individuals now, this due to several reasons. Many law enforcement jobs out there here in Macomb County and in the state of Michigan, and competitive wages at the deputy rank. We're behind, and that's for another conversation. We also did receive an increase in some of the operational expenses to help us. Requests not in the original budget. This one here it was requested that we have 4 dispatch supervisors in our dispatch center. We have an administrator and 4 supervisors, and the rest are dispatchers. We're having a hard time getting any of the dispatchers to take that promotion to a supervisor, to take on the added responsibility to oversee the operation inside there. We've posted 3 times, and nobody's signing up. Nobody wants to take the test and move up. One of the things that we've identified is the discrepancy in pay. Between a dispatcher and a dispatch supervisor, it's $6,000, just roughly $6,300 in pay to be a supervisor in there and have the responsibility of everything that's going on. I currently use sworn law enforcement to oversee the dispatch center when the supervisors are off or due to this shortage. From a dispatcher to the first level sergeant, which we call Sergeant 1, is a $14,000 pay increase. Again, if we want to get good people, and I want them to do a good job, and again, that 911 center is the pulse and the key. We got to be able to pay these people what they're worth and to make sure that they're doing the job. So that was asked. We did not get that. He talked about the law enforcement supplies. Again, we asked for an additional $85,000. We received $10,000. We were looking at additional ammo that we need to train our people, vests that every 5 years we have to change out, tasers, leg irons, belly chains, stop sticks, those type of things that help us out on a daily basis and that we need. We did, with our contracts, Macomb Township added additional people, so that's going to be additional training, and there's additional revenue that's coming in from those contracts. The new equipment, as he spoke, we asked for $166,000, and I think we received $66,000. We're looking at body cameras for the new deputies, preps for the new deputies. We had an opportunity to exchange our current guns with the manufacturer for 260 of them for $49,000, roughly $100 and some a gun. We asked for that. And as he spoke, we got $66,000 of that. And we did ask for an increase in fleet expenses, and that too was not received. Goals for next year is the jail project. The RFP is almost at completion. We're hoping of pushing out the RFP by September 1st and bringing in a firm, an architectural firm, to give us some schematic designs and things that we need to deal with prisoners here in Macomb County for the next 20 years. So that hopefully will be in front of this board sometime in 2018. And the other goals for 2018 is to continue to hire and retain and train people that want to be Macomb County Sheriff's deputies. With that, I'll entertain questions.
Chair Smith. Okay, and I'm just trying to understand what I have in front of me, and I might be the only one that's not seeing it correctly. So in our budget book, we have on page C64 and 65 is position types. You see that? So under jail, it goes from 233.5 to 237.5 from the 2017 amended to 2018 recommended. And then under courtroom security, it goes from 14 to 15. And then on the next page, under professional support, it goes from 6 to 7.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that last one?
On C65, under surveillance professional support, it goes from 6 to 7.
Yep.
And then
Two.
CRP support, it goes from nothing to 1. Okay, so that's what's in the book next to his thing. And then we have the one that he was talking about, the 2 different positions. It says position type by category, position schedule by department type, I'm sorry, and it's addendum 12 in the budget. For us, it's page 45. So that looks like that's the sheriff's. Well, it says 2017 full-time equivalent amended 2005 and recommended 2009. So that's 4 positions. And then under corrections, it's got 161 for 2017 amended and 163 for recommended. So that's 2. What am I'm seeing different things. He said he's got 2 and 2, and I'm seeing, I think I'm not understanding this paperwork versus this. Am I the only one? Okay.
The third deputy is in the, I guess it'll end up in my budget, but the prosecutor asked for a deputy to be stationed at the paternity hearings. And that deputy that was recommended is going to be paid for out of the state for the friend of the court. I think it's a 25% match. And that shows up in Eric's budget.
This has got 4 deputies and 2 corrections deputies on addendum 12 in the budget. It's at the end of the budget.
Oh, that's right. No, we got, we had a deputy that was at Comet, and it was under the burn grant. And that deputy, those burn grants now are being used because they're so small, they're being used for operational expenditures. And so that deputy is being put back into the general fund.
Did the deputy exist before the grant?
At one point, we had 9 deputies there. Yeah.
Okay, so it existed before the grant.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's that page, addendum 12. So what's the difference between that and C64 and C65? What is C64 and 65, which has jail going from 233.5 to 237.5? Maybe that's actually the same thing. And 14 to 15 on courtroom, but then on C65, 6 to 7 and 0 to 1. So CRP support, it goes from 0 for the amended to 1. It's at the very bottom of C65. Do you see what I'm? Mm-hmm. So that goes from 0 to 1. That last line item, you see that? And if you go up, you'll see surveillance team, it goes from 6 to 7. Do you see that?
Yeah, that's where the Comet guy's going. Right.
The Comet guy's going from a grant, which is on another page.
I saw that.
Into the set. The new position for the prosecutor and the friend of the court, that's the CRP. So there's actually, the sheriff's actually going up, general fund's going up by 6 positions. The 2 deputies that we gave them, the 2 corrections deputies we gave them, and then 2 additional deputies, one for the CRP, which will be explained with friend of the court and the prosecutor's budget. And that's funded by that program with revenue coming into the general fund. And then the other position is the one that we talked about with the set. That
The
was
grant, that's an offset.
Right.
So there's a total of 7 positions. You're
Six.
just saying,
6.
well, you said 4 and 2, and then the 1. So 4 and 2
No,
is.
well, the 2 is the set one, which is was the grant, and then the CRP. Those are the 2, plus the 2 deputies and the 2 corrections deputies. So there's 6 total positions going to be into the general fund.
Right. There's 7 positions. It's just what you're saying is the CRP isn't coming out of here. It's just listed here.
That's a brand-new position that will be shared by the friend of the court and the prosecutor's office, billable to those 2 grant programs. with
That's what I
revenue
was
coming into the
asking.
general
It's
fund.
listed here, but you're saying it's not coming out of the general fund.
We treat that position like we do. There's 5 positions that are currently assigned to friend of the court called FOC enforcement on page C64. Near the bottom, there's 5 deputies for FOC enforcement.
Yes.
That's the same type of a scenario. Those 5 positions are being funded through the friend of the court grant. Their regular salary and fringe costs are located in the general fund, in the sheriff's general fund budget. Revenue comes in.
There's a yeah, I think
Yeah.
we're saying the same
Yes,
thing.
yes.
I think we're saying the same
Right.
thing. I'm saying the CRP one, it's listed as a new one in here, but it's funded elsewhere. There's a revenue coming in to
That's correct.
offset it.
It's a brand-new position
Okay.
because of that.
Okay, so the jail and the courtroom security, the jail, the 233.5 to 237.5 on C64.
That's the 2 transport positions for the deputies, and the 2 corrections deputies are located in that budget, in that cost center. So that's the 4 new positions that we already talked about.
Okay, and then the courtroom security that goes from 14 to 15?
That position is a position that was put in the budget for 2018. Last year, it's for the new, it's the deputy assigned to the new judge.
Okay, so it's listed in his budget, but it's sort of a mandatory thing because we have a new judge.
Yeah, we built it into 18's number when we presented the 17 budget last year.
Okay.
We're just showing it in 18.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Jay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do you do tax returns on the side? Question. Marine Division, how many, you show here 4 people. How many people does it take in the Marine Division? Because you got volunteers.
Right, the 4 full-time people that are out there 365 days, we have a lieutenant, a sergeant, and 2 deputies.
Right.
And then from Memorial Day to Labor Day, we reassign 4 additional deputies out there to cover. And then we augment with 97 Marine safety officers, which are reserve officers that help us out there.
97?
Yep.
Wow. Is the fountain working? Because when we got it, only 10 years ago or whatever, there's always been problems with it.
I think
You're getting rid of Cherokees.
Is it back in service? Yeah, we had to put some new engines in it. We actually got.
So it actually works now?
It works. Yeah.
Okay. Where do you have the deputy that shows up at the full board meetings? Where is that person in all of this?
Court security, Rollo, and
Yeah.
Probably roving security.
Yeah.
That's probably-
roving security.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, that's not a roving? Okay, because whoever it is, they do a terrific job. Comtech positions. We've got the Comtech positions here. How about the Comtech positions in Warren? Because Warren's the backup plan for it.
Right, Warren basically was staff on a full-time basis. They staff their own dispatch center. They are in the process, as we are in the process of duplicating. Warren will duplicate our center
Right.
in their building. We're duplicating Warren's center in our building. And nobody will be there. The only time they'll go is if something happens.
But there's cross-training that's happening.
Exactly, yep.
When do you expect a majority of this to get done? In the
think-
next year?
I would think in the next 6 months, 6
Okay.
to 8 months. Warren's doing the construction now. Our councils are set up. They're not live yet, but they are in place.
All right. Couple more.
Go right ahead.
Workman's comp. I always wanted to know what percentage do the sheriffs and/or the people that at the jail pay as a percentage on workman's comp?
The workers' comp rates that we use to help fund the total payments that are projected out at the end of the year is 0.25% for regular county and 2.5% for sheriff. So it's about 10%, it's 10 times, the rate's 10 times higher for sheriff employees than it is for general county.
Do we shop that around? Or, please don't tell me that we're self-insured for
Yeah,
that.
every year. Yeah. Our risk manager shops that each year. Yeah.
So we're paying 2.5% per $100.
Yes.
Actually, that's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Where's ammunition on here? Because you guys got to go through ammo like it's going out of
Law
style.
enforcement supplies?
Yeah, it's a bullet point. Where is it?
Should be in law enforcement supplies. That's where we get it out of.
Kill you.
You know, and again, one that was brought up was, you know, the fact that go to your forfeiture account and fund your operation through the forfeiture account. Well, we have a few projects, including that Warren project. We got some earmark for those forfeiture funds, and you know, if we keep saying, you know, go to the forfeiture account, that's going to be zeroed out, and we'll be back in front of you when we need, you know, other key equipment. You know, I have never been shy about going in there and getting equipment and things that are going to benefit our organization and our operation and the safety of our men and women. But, you know, every time we need something or want something or ask for something, you know, we just don't arbitrarily pull it out and say, hey, it'd be great to have that. We come with documentation and justification. But it does get, and you can ask my staff right there, they get a little frustrated when we make the call, and nothing is financed because they're doing their job. They got to look out for the money. But they keep telling us, go to the forfeiture account. That well's going to dry up, folks.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, last but not least, who's the supplier of firearms that didn't want to or wanted to, or how did that work?
that's, you know, that's going to be up for, you know, I brought this proposal forward because it came from our firearms guy. We received new firearms at the sheriff's office back in I think it was 1992. Prior to 1992, when I started, and Marv can attest to this, is the fact that you had to buy your own weapon. I think it was 1992, we went to department issue weapons. We had Smith & Wesson's 40-46s. And we had those weapons all the way up to, I think it was right around 2011. And again, we had to do something because they, you know, they were breaking down the repairs. But at that time, 2011, we had a pretty good deal. Smith & Wesson came to us and said, we'll take your old 40-46s and we'll give you these new M&P 40s, which we're carrying now. 1-for-1 trade. We didn't pay anything, which was good.
That's pretty
And again, this is where I'm debating, but I brought it forward because I do trust my people. Now they're saying, well, look, we can trade in those guns we gave you in 2011. We'll give you the brand new models. You know, it was roughly $100 and some per weapon. Some of these weapons, the night sights would be $100 and some to replace. So the range master said, well, look, if I got to spend $100 and some to replace your night sights, wouldn't it be nice just to get a new weapon? So we put that in the budget.
Is there any thought of, and and this guaranteed the last one, going from 40 to 9mm?
You know-
Because my understanding is the FBI went from 40 to 9mm.
You know, there's never been talk. We have the 40s, we have the ammunition. We have, you know, all of our deputies are carrying the 40s. The SWAT team carries the 40s. It's all
Oh, do they
standard.
really? All right. All right, thank you very much, Sheriff.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I'm going to move back up the list. I skipped Chair Smith.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Sheriff. Thank you for coming. So just on the forfeiture account, so we understand it a little bit better. It's going down because new laws, or is it just we're not busting enough good stuff? I mean, I don't really understand the forfeiture account that much,
Well-
but I mean, I know that you're probably getting more pressure on it, so that would obviously cause it to.
Right. You know, there's several things that are going in there, and again, it's you know, it's what's out there in the market, what these the drug dealers are doing to protect their assets, and for us trying to find the assets. That's number one. You've seen some change in the state of Michigan with some forfeiture laws now. There's changes about no more bonds, and there's a push to get convictions before you can forfeit anything. You want to talk about slowing down the court system, then that's really going to happen. You know, marijuana was really a big thing that a lot of dope crews would take off. You know, you have medical marijuana now. You have the new law that's coming out in January. You'll see dispensaries and grow operations in your communities if they allow them. And we truly believe that in 2018, I think we're going to be voting on recreational marijuana, which will be, which will be a disaster. So you're seeing some reduction in that. And again, we've been using it, earmarking it for some of the bigger projects and some of the things.
Forfeiture fund, right?
Forfeiture
Marijuana.
funds.
All right.
Forfeiture funds.
Wanted to make sure.
Right. You know, for me, and again, the philosophy over the past few years to come in front of this group, if I have the funding source, it goes a lot easier, right? If I got to ask you for the money, you know, it's going to be a little bit more difficult, and you're really going to have to do that. But, you know, I think I've gone to the well quite a bit, and, you know.
All right, thanks. So just based on some of these, I just was questioning, had some questions. Part-time wages have gone up considerably. Is this more part-time people, or do you have any, the reason, I mean, it went from 876 amended in 17 to $1,000,001 in for part-time wages. Am I missing something?
Okay.
Yeah, all right.
Most of those part-time wages are strictly attributed to the blue coats that we have, all the different stations that we have for security at the doors in all the buildings in the county. And we've been going on a deployment schedule was at 2015 level. And in talking to Chet Keller, who's in charge of the blue coats or the security, we realized that they actually had additional officers at some of these stations. So we actually brought the budget for 18 back up to where it should be. Now that we have the county building open, they've got 2 or 3 people at the doors at all times. We now have an extra station here because of the parking garage. And we budgeted for next year for Talmer, because we did have some security people at Talmer, and after we put the budget together, our clerk had them pulled, but the budget is there's still about $101,000 allocated for part-timers for those blue coats if we wanted to man a station at Talmer as well. So that's why that figure went up a couple $100,000, because we actually brought the budget up to the way that the deployment schedule, how many officers we had at each of those sections, each of those stations were.
Okay.
See,
So don't leave, though. I have to talk to you. So
But
don't
that's
sit down,
where,
but yes.
you know, I sometimes forget about some of these things that we just inherited. And
Right.
again, the blue coats were originally in circuit court budget, and we now manage them, hire them, operate them. And again, with the opening of this building and all the other buildings, that was an increase on our budget too.
So I'm just asking you about ones that went up. Are you on the list? training costs went up by, a decent amount. And I might have missed. I thought I heard you talk about training a little bit
Yeah,
earlier,
that's,
but I'm
you're
sorry
looking
for-
at, all these individuals that we've got to replace for the
Okay.
road. We have to send them to the police academy, the corrections academy. Specialty individuals that have retired, we have to replace those.
Got it. I'm sorry, I remember that. And you said a lot of vacancies are going on because of,
Yep.
does that help, like, ease a little bit on the wages? I mean, a little bit? I mean, because I know a lot of times we'll have, in different departments, obviously smaller than yours, but they'll have a few vacancies that they kind of, at the end of the year, they've saved 80,000 or 120,000 or whatever it might be by not filling a position, either by choice or in your case, by the fact that we're, I mean,
Right.
Is that based on, like, the full-time wages, is it based on full capacity? Or is it based on kind of what you've been normally seeing with the process?
Well, we always think that if under this budget that we get to operate, if I've had 20 positions vacant for a whole year, I should have quite a savings or access to some money, but I'll let them explain what happens.
Okay. Can you explain now how that works?
Yeah, the full-time positions are budgeted at max for the positions that are filled and at midpoint for those that are vacant that you see on the schedule.
Midpoint between the salary scale? Okay.
Yes, sir. Yep.
And then at the end of the year, maybe, I don't know where we're at online for, like, say, the sheriff's office or something, say that they didn't fill 10 positions over the year, but they were slated for them. What happens to that money at the end if they have a $300,000 surplus in their budget? Does that just kind of erase and go back into the budget, or do they get to maybe roll that into some of the things that they need the next
It gets
year?
erased effectively, as you put it, and put back into fund balance and then rebudgeted in the following budget cycle.
So in essence, in a strange way, it kind of penalizes them for saving money, whether it's saving by accident because because they can't fill a position, or if they've really done good work to streamline some stuff, they kind of go, okay, next year you don't need this much, right?
Budgetarily, there's also a what we call a turnover factor that we have in the general fund that actually accounts for a certain percentage of vacancies countywide, and then we basically credit that out of everybody's department budgets at the end of the year when we're doing our final adjustments for our audit report.
Okay.
I believe it's 5% is the turnover factor for 18 that you're seeing, and that's in non-departmental expenses in the budget.
Do we have an estimate at this point on the sheriff's department on where they fall compared to what they are at this point?
We don't do specific department forecast. The 5% is for the entire general fund. So it may be, like in finance, for example, right now it's 0%. In other departments, it may be 10%.
Okay. All right, and then one last question. This is strictly for finance, and I know Steve's not here, and I like getting on him better than you guys, 'cause it's more fun. But, so I have a schedule here, and I don't think everybody has it yet, but I'm looking at the 18 forecast from 2017. So like for the budget for last year, they forecast, so we were going 17 budget and forecasting 18, to now the 18 recommended. And in almost every single category, it has raised a significant amount. So I guess I go back to my question yesterday is, every year we go on this 5-year plan of a budget that how we're gonna have this much in our capital fund, and we gotta keep it like this by having this budget. But every year, the forecasted budget goes up. So it doesn't make sense to me how we're gonna keep, going ahead at this pace. I mean, and I'll be happy to show you this, and I'm sure you guys keep your, last year's recommended versus this year's, or estimated versus this year's recommended coming up into that. But it seems like every budget, and I'm not picking on yours, I mean, every budget from 2016 to now, the recommended has gone up in almost every category. And I just don't know if we're just undershooting everything or trying to paint a better picture all the time. But I just want to point out that it's something that's noticeable. Last year we were fine with, going down to a certain percentage of our general fund, and then we were going to raise back up. Well, then this year we can do that again, but now we need a $20 million bond. I mean, that's what the kind of stuff. And then next year, is it going to keep going? And well, we just need 10 more million to keep it going. It seems, I don't know everything just got caught off guard or what with our forecast, but it seems like we're, our forecasts, I thought, are generally conservative, like, above what we were. So
And that is a perfect segue into the general comments I would have made regarding an operating budget. When you're doing forecasts, especially in the finance department, we don't try to account for increases in staffing. So when you see that page that says, hey, we had, and let me turn to it so I can give you the exact numbers. But this year, for example, 25 and a half positions were requested. 16 were part of this recommended budget. The forecast, when we go forward into future years and we say 2% for property taxes and we say a turnover factor of 5%, we have 0 for personnel. With the noted exception, I think we flow through the planned increases as a result of the additional judge coming online, I believe in 19, I think it is. Is it an 18 or 19? Well, it's in that year, we do have a package of positions that get added throughout the court system to accommodate that new judge. But apart from those, really, we don't find out about new requests for positions from Mr. Wickersham or from anybody else in the county until we're doing these budget meetings. And realistically, I don't think there's very many local municipalities or county governments that do that. Just because it's very difficult, and that is the #1 cost center in any government is labor. So we do try to make the assumption that we're going to work with what we've got when we go forward 10 years for forecast.
Right. Well, and I guess I understand that, but I mean, it seems like there should be a little better communication between you guys and the executive's office then about how you should forecast this. When you forecast the next year with 0 positions, but the executive's probably going to plan on allowing for 15 positions wherever they might be, it's kind of, it really doesn't paint an accurate picture, right? Because if we say that, this year's going to be this and this year's going to be this, well, if everybody's not following that plan, then we might as well not even plan for the next 5 years. It just seems like we're just throwing out a kind of a fairy tale of, well, if everybody stayed status quo, and we know that's not going to happen, apparently. So I'm going to talk to Steve a little more about this. I just want to point out that I almost don't even like looking into 19 or 20 or any of these other things because I see they change so much. And I mean, if they changed a little bit, I would understand. But it seems like we need to do a little bit more realistic. Are we going to allow positions? Are we going to hold to the, no positions? What are we going to do?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that really speaks to policy decisions that happen, obviously, above the finance department.
I understand.
And
I
that
just
can
want to point
happen
out
at this board. That can happen in the executive's office. And the forecast, and you, again, in my experience as a former auditor and also a former finance director, the finance department will typically produce a forecast based off of current staffing levels because the government is operating at that level today. Because ultimately the finance department can't account for what others are going to be potentially overriding our forecast in the future, how many positions.
And that's fine. I just wanted to kind of point that out to some of our newer commissioners that, they don't think that this is, I mean, it might be well thought out as far as, certain aspects, but the biggest aspect of it, like you say, is personnel, and that's not taken into account for. So when we start looking at $20 million bond for this thing, what's going to happen in 2020 when we've added another 70 positions? So anyway, just realize that number's a little, sorry to do this on your budget presentation there, Sheriff, but thank you. I don't have any more questions for the Sheriff Department's budget.
Commissioner Drollet?
Thank you. I'm going to continue the tradition of abusing the sheriff's time by asking finance guys questions. So,
All you want.
He doesn't mind at all.
so looking at the big picture numbers, the budget goes up from like 68.8 million to 69.8. It's like 1.5% increase, it appears, which seems very modest. And then, as we found out yesterday, one of the things that's affecting these budgets is the changes in the pension retiree health care provisions, which show, a fairly significant decrease. Mm-hmm. And I'm really just need a little bit more clarification. I understand that we closed the pension system for new hires and that we've got them entering into a different, I guess, more 401k style program. So I'm wondering where our county costs are in either matches or other costs that we have toward that 401k program, where those are ending up. Because, or is this actual savings of $1 million that we're actually saving, or is it being spent in a different area of the budget, whether it's their, a match that we're doing or some other place within the budget?
What you're looking at when you see pension and retiree health care costs are the costs for both pension systems. So the defined benefit pension system, which is a traditional pension that you think of when you think of a pension, where it's calculated based off of your average compensation and service years, and there's an actuarially determined contribution that we make on behalf of the employees, and the employees make a small contribution. The other pension that's also in here is the new one that Mr. Droulet is referring to, known as a defined contribution in the government world, also basically a 401k in the private sector, where employees are making a contribution and then we are matching it. So the employer portion is the county money, taxpayer money, that is going to fund that expense, and it's appearing in this line item. Included in this line item with the defined benefit pension.
So it's not some numbers moving around situation.
It's a true savings that you're seeing.
So we're truly saving $1 million in that line item in this budget.
In the sheriff's department, you're
Right.
quoting? Yes, that is correct.
Well, that's very helpful, because that actually means that the increase in the budget honestly is 1.5%. I mean, there might be some small factors and that sort of thing, which is below the rate of inflation, and hopefully that savings is allowing us to meet some of the department's needs without going above the rate of inflation. So I'm glad to hear that. I was worried that it might be, we had to move that to a different line item because it's a different kind of pension, and it's it's going to show up in some other area of a general fund or something. Yeah. But all right, well, that's terrific to know. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This question, I have 3 questions for the sheriff. I think you can
right
answer
ahead.
all 3 of them. Going along the lines with Chairman Smith, on contract services, 2017's was $5,029,000. It looks like you're going up $500,000, $532,000. What's the reason for the contract services?
Okay, and again, I do apologize because I did get a memo. I was supposed to also address the medical increase. That's
Okay.
inmate healthcare.
Okay, so that's that service that we use, the medical service?
Yeah, let me just real quick touch on that, give you a perspective. In 2015, we were budgeted $5.5 million. We spent $4.2, so there was a savings there. In 2016, we spent 5.5, or we were budgeted 5.5. We spent 4.9. So doing a good job keeping things under control. We get penalized, it gets taken away. Here we are today in 2017. We were given $5 million. We asked for a little bit more. Year to date, with true-ups, we'll probably be about $400,000 short at the end of the year in inmate health care. I think, I've addressed this board before on other issues about the jail. There's a lot more inmates going to the hospital. We've had one inmate that we've had to take to the hospital almost every day. I actually had to get a court order to feed him. Again, this is a murder suspect, so he's not going anywhere anytime soon. So, but those are costs that we're incurring in the medical.
So this year, you were budgeted for 5. You think you're going to be about 5.4 million this year?
That's
Okay.
about where
And that's where you're asking
medical's
for
predicting,
5.5.
yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Next question I have is the Dakota liaison. What is the Dakota liaison? That's one of the
It's a
positions.
liaison officer that works at Dakota High School.
Okay.
It's a 50-50.
That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah.
Okay.
The school district, Chippewa Valley Schools, is paying 50% of the salary. Macomb Township is paying the other 50%.
Okay, so it's a revenue for us in a sense. Got you. That's what I want to know.
Yep.
The last question I had, it's going to be on your supplemental worksheet, and you talked about this. These were the dispatch supervisors. You said you wanted to reclassify them to Sergeant 1 pay at $14,027, right?
Right. We wanted to bring them on par with our first line supervisor on the law enforcement side again.
But currently, if I understood what your presentation, that dispatch supervisor only gets $6,000 increase. So you're talking about going from 6,000 to 14,000, or is it a 14,000 spread? Like,
Well, no, it would be the difference between the 14 and the current 6.
okay, so it'd be $8,000 more.
Right.
So total of 32,000
For the 3, and then if I
Gotcha.
could get somebody that would be interested to step up and take the test, and that I'd be able to promote into that 4th position, that dispatcher then would see that 14,000 total increase over a period of time.
If they took it now, they would get a $6,000
Right.
increase. Okay,
Exactly.
so if you're asking for those, you're really asking $32,000 essentially more, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay, thank you, Sheriff. Good to see you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question and then I guess a general statement. But are we adding a dog next year in 2018? I see the increase in the canine unit.
How we're working this is, I requested to bring 3 more dogs back to the Sheriff's Department. At one time, we had 7 dogs at the Sheriff's Department and 3 retirements, and the dogs getting old. We're down to 2 dogs. So they're not going to be additional positions. We take regular deputies that are working out on the road. We send them to the school, we get them a dog, and they'll be out in the community with that dog
Do we ever share dogs with other communities?
every day,
So do we use their dogs?
every day.
So I'm a little confused here, Sheriff. So how many do we have right now?
2.
2.
So I have a dog that can only do tracking. It's a bloodhound, and that deputy works on the midnight shift. I have a day shift deputy who has a dog that does tracking and explosives. So currently, we don't have any dogs that do narcotics. So if we have nobody on the afternoon shift, we're looking at Sterling Heights, Roseville, Chesterfield. We look at other communities as well as they do for us. It's all working together.
Okay. Again, the general statement is, we're looking at, and I agree with Commissioner Smith, the trends are going up, and everybody likes to have a wish list. I wish we could have this much money, and I wish and you don't get it. But, if you ask our constituents, give me something that's very important to you, other than the roads, which everybody hears about, they're talking about public safety, and the other one is property maintenance. But public safety always comes up first. And it's hard for me to understand, for example, this new jail that's going in, we're going to need more people for that new jail. Believe me, if you go back to my record, I'm a tough guy on spending money. I really am. I don't like to spend money, especially my constituents' money. But I see a need here. I see the trend going up as far as Macomb County is going, and I don't understand why literally, just about literally, the sheriff has to come down here on one knee and ask for money when it's not money that he's wishing for, it's money that he actually needs. And I think before we actually adopt this budget, Sheriff, I'm kind of putting you on the line here. I think you got to come back with something hard and fast that says this is what I absolutely need, not what my wish list is. And I think we as commissioners should probably go along with that. But again, I think some of this might be a wish list, maybe not. But I think there's a need. There's a need here for additional deputies. There's a need here for additional equipment. There's a need here for things that we need in Macomb County on public safety that we're not giving to the sheriff. And it's like building a house, guys. You can't do it without the necessary tools. I know it sounds like I'm being on a soapbox, but I've always been, and my people are always telling me they're concerned about safety. They're concerned about these drug problems that are going on. They're concerned about roads too, but the roads can wait. You can't wait when you call 911 and nobody responds. You need somebody now, and I think we ought to take a hard look at this budget that the sheriff is presenting. And as I said, maybe if he had to come back before we adopt it, that we should maybe stretch a little bit and get this money out. That's all I have. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Sauger on the first.
Yeah, I just want to add on what Joe just said. You got to put yourself in the position of these deputies and these correctional officers. When you work an 8-hour shift and then you're told you got to stay 8 more hours and you got a family there and you chose this profession, but that's part of it, and then you're told you got to stay another 8 hours, it's tough on anybody's body. So security, safety is number one, but I have 2 in that right now. I went through it, and it's the hardest thing, and I don't think any one of you went through what they have to do it, but they chose that. I know that. But somebody's got to be over there, thank God they're over there. But when you get done working your 8 hours, or we're to get done with our board meeting, we go home or go wherever. Not them, they gotta work another 8 hours. And they got families and everything else, so they'll never get me to turn them down for help or the different positions. So just think about that when we make our vote. Okay? Thanks, Sheriff.
Thank you, Marv.
Any other commissioners on the first round? Commissioner Kleinfeld on the second.
Thank you. Just very quickly, when we did this, before we did the 65 million, Pete Provenzano was our finance director, and he couldn't get himself to get behind it because he said we were going to be in trouble down the road. He finally got there, but he came before us and he said, if we do this, you have to hold the line on new positions. We have not done that. Every year since then, in several departments, there's been requests to increase by the county executive. We've done increases, some increases we've done that the county exec's office didn't even request, but other departments did. So what I'm worried about, when Commissioner Romano says, bring what you need, I know you're going to come with a higher number. I know that. And what I'm worried about is going back into that thing where we have all department heads bypassing the county exec's office and coming to us and imploring us to add positions to their department because we've added positions every year. Steve said yesterday, if we do the 20 million, then we really have to hold the line. We haven't had a single year since I've been on that we've held the line and not increased positions. I'm not confident that we're going to do that, so I'm very concerned about that. I just want to just point out very quickly with respect to just this department, and I agree, I believe you're short-staffed. My frustration is I'm not in there and I don't know which departments are really short-staffed and which departments are throwing requests out there, and it's not my job to do that, but I don't think we're coming in with a few enough number of positions for us to stay afloat in the future. With regard to this department, we in 2015 audited 507, 2016 audited 509, and remember, we're doing the 65 million and we're holding the line. 2017 audited 522, we're holding the line, but we've gone from 507 to 522, now we're going up to 528, but we're holding the line, and this is just one department. I am getting concerned that we get the rosiest picture possible from finance. And when they're giving us a rosy picture and they're saying, but you really need to hold the line from here on out, and we're still getting requests from the county exec's office to go ahead and approve some of these positions, I don't know how we deal with that. And I'll just say this and let you go with regard to the conferences and training, and I understand the new people and the turnover and all of that. Some of it I think we should be able to anticipate with retirements. But 2015 audited was to 2016 audited was almost a 70% increase. From 2016 to 2017 audited, almost a 50% increase. This is in conferences and training. And from 2017 to 2018, another 20% increase. So that number that was at 80,000 is going to be 237,000 next year. It seems like we always have turnover, so something, if we have to hold the line on discretionary, we have to figure out what that discretionary is. If we're not going to, if the county exec's not going to hold the line on positions, we're in a tight spot. So I just want to, I don't know how to address this because I know that they're short-staffed. This isn't with regard to your department. It's coming up at this meeting, but it's not with regard to your department. It's with regard to all the departments.
Right.
So.
And just to defend my department, the fact that those increases are probably mostly contracted communities that have increased their level there. I don't think I received a county-funded position in a while. I've asked for them, but was shot down. So, yeah.
Hello. Thank you for coming today. I'm just going to go a little bit off of what Joe said, that if there's any department that I myself would support there being additional people, it's obviously going to be the sheriff department. I could feel a lot safer at night if an accountant didn't get hired or something in another department. I don't know the man that you spoke of that was there earlier that said we have to hold the line, but was he here when we had this heroin epidemic? I mean, what's happening right now in our communities just seems like in the last several years has become increasingly dangerous. And so I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you.
I don't remember his name. You had mentioned it.
Just for clarification, he meant hold the line if you want this budget to look like it's looking for the forecast, not hold the line because we don't want any new positions, but it was strictly a budgeting thing. And I noticed you took a accountant away from finance, and they kind of groaned over there.
Christina started to worry, too. She's my accountant.
So, Sheriff, let me ask you a little bit about the jail. And, you know, you're talking about RFPs and hiring, you know, and we had a big, you know, presentation about some of the other things that I thought might need to be addressed before we get to that. And that's what we're going to do with central intake, what we're going to do with, you know, like I say, I come from the old day too, not quite as long ago, but, you know, similar to the old days, impressed upon me from my dad that, you know what, put them in jail, right? I mean, put them in jail. That's what we do when people have, you know, they're drug addicts or there's drug, you know, and we're starting to see that, you know, there's a big problem out there that might be less expensive to the community as a whole by diverting them to different programs. And I know that you know, we've talked about it. I'm just wondering where we're at with that, and if you've had a chance to talk to, I'll tell you that a group came in and talked to us, and I was going to talk to you about this, but I'll mention it now. And it was an architectural firm, major national architectural firm that really specializes in, you know, building jails, and they've been very involved in, you know, a lot of these diversionary central intake, you know, and all that. And I'm just wondering if you had an opportunity to look at, you know, kind of the plan and which way we're going to go, because I hate to get to the point where we're designing a jail and everything around something, and then we're realizing that, hey, maybe we need to do this a little bit different, right? Maybe we didn't need 1,000 beds. Maybe we only need 700 when we're looking at a proper program that diverts a lot of these, you know, drug cases. So just wondering if you could tell me where we're at with that.
You know,
5 words or less.
We've looked. We've got the data. Again, we want to reach on out. We want to do the RFP. We want to get people to come on in and give us the hard facts. Not looking for a new jail. I think somebody might have mentioned that up there. We do not need a new jail. I mean, we've spent some money. The tower has been refurbished, and that's 860 beds that are good beds that are going to last us to the future.
Okay, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, we need the, you know, a central intake system where we can do some pretrial services with Barb's office. Looking at people that are getting arrested in the county, you know, do they belong in jail? There's treatment facilities. Can we put them out on tether and keep the community protected? That's really the trend of where we're going. We need a new mental health medical unit. There's no doubt in my mind that's what we need. And again, you know, what is the projection? You know, the consultant was here. He gave it a projection out. If you do this, if you don't do it. Yes, and I know and when we come back, Commissioner Kleinfeld asked, well, what are the things you can do? What are the things that in the recommendation you don't have? You know, I brought back the 2 recommendations, the central intake and the community increase in pretrial services that can hopefully reduce our population here in Macomb County. All those other points of alternatives and all deal with the courts, the judges themselves. You know, we're bringing them to the table. We're working with Judge Shepard, who's in charge of the district courts, or the president of the District Courts Association. He's very engaged in this program. So we're looking at what we can do. Yeah, it would be great to put this program together, and if we can reduce the capacity, it makes everybody's life easy.
Great, and thanks. I didn't realize that we were kind of going away from the new jail thing.
Yeah, I think I
missed
made
but
that
thanks.
even in my last time. I know somebody said
Aye.
new jail, and it's a good thing you brought that back up because
good.
we gotta kill that rumor.
Right.
We've got we've got a tower that's been refurbished and
Yeah, and to Commissioners Lucido and Romano's point, I agree wholeheartedly that, no one asks me if we're going to get new, and I'll just pick on, well, whatever, I don't pick on anybody. But all the departments that we have, no one asks me about anything except for roads and sheriffs and dispatchers, and that's what I hear mostly about. And quite honestly, I think you're right. We could get away with probably even less of a lot of what we have, but we certainly can't get away with, being understaffed at all in the sheriff department. So I agree with you on that. I'm not sure what we do, where we go from there, but.
And if I could just, and if Steve was here, because we've talked about it, and he's going to work with us on this shift relief factor, just especially for the jail. If we can get the right number of employees to staff that jail on the correction side, a couple things can happen. One, you'll see those retirement costs go down because all of these new employees are coming in on a 401k and no health and the health savings plan, right? So we're going to make some savings there, and if we can reduce that overtime, that's going to save us. So, we have to take a look at this shift relief factor, look at how many people do we really need to adequately staff that jail so that if people can take benefit time, people can call on a sick day. If I send somebody to training, I'm not looking for overtime. If we can get those numbers up, you'll see that $4 million get reduced in overtime. You'll see those benefit times, that pension cost go down. So really, that's where we have to start thinking, and we're working with finance on that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Although I agree with what Commissioner Romano, Lucido, and others here, can you quote me those numbers about retirements in the next 2 years? And
Okay, 18 will be 13, and again, that's from my command staff, deputy sheriffs, corrections deputies. 19 will be 17. And 20 will be 15.
Going to finance, how does finance account for this kind of loss in manpower, and then come up with what we're losing at the top end here, because these people are probably at the top end of their scale, and we're going to get new people that are at the, quote, bottom end of the scale. What percentage do you use to try to figure it out? And this is a perfect department to try to get a handle on it in order to go forward as far as your projections.
Well, the current approach is to budget the current positions that are filled at max step. The vacant positions are budgeted at mid-range between that min and max. And then we have a turnover factor that we apply to the entire general fund based off of an average of all the departments, which this year is 5%. So 5% turnover factor. So when you look at the full-time wages, 5% of that number that you're looking at is effectively being counted as likely to be not spent due to the very things that you're speaking of regarding resignations, retirements, and the like.
Is 5% realistic? There are some departments that will remain nameless that have no idea how many people they're short, and they'll probably be short until God only knows when.
We have found that the turnover factor has been effective at approximating how much of the budget is going unused from a labor standpoint. If anything, it's been a little high in current years because as we've come up to full employment following the recession, we've had fewer turnover. For example, while the sheriff's department is losing people due to being poached from other agencies and the like that Sheriff Wickersham spoke of, the finance department, for example, another general fund department, much smaller, has turned over nobody in this calendar year to date. So it does tend to average out. Obviously, we're much smaller budget salary-wise than the sheriff. But the 5% used to be, I believe it was as high as 7, and it's come down 1% each year now. just as we've gotten closer to full employment. We still, of course, have vacancies in various departments in the general fund, but we're more fully staffed than we've ever, well, I shouldn't say that, but in recent memory.
Okay, fair enough.
Haven't been here forever, so.
Well, 5% just, and it goes to what Chairman Smith was talking about. I don't know if 5% can, you know, it might work in other departments. I don't think 5% works in the sheriff's department.
Correct. If we were trying to budget a turnover factor for each department, we would talk to Sheriff Wickersham individually, and we would come up with that along with the other departments.
All right. I'd love to see the increase in money coming in versus how many from other municipalities to pay for sheriff's deputies running around that municipality, whoever, to make sure that, you know, because like you said, some of these positions, although it's an increase on paper here, it's not really an increase because it's offset by the money coming in from a municipality to pay for it. Last but not least, can somebody please tell me what the heck we got investment income of $2 for? Really?
It was a tough year in the stock market.
It's a great year. They're over 22,000, but it says here through July 31st, $2 investment income.
I can speak from experience in the finance department. Sometimes we run a little behind on our journal entries too. That
It could just be a miscode on a journal entry that nobody caught.
$2?
Well, it could be something for the treasurer's office, something like that, for some transaction
Oh.
that flowed through them that was just key punched wrong on our end. Those were just, those are costs that are just.
Leave that in our budget though, okay?
I'm fine with that. Yeah.
This is absurd. Come on.
So I was just told that probably is related to some inmate funds that the sheriff's department actually had interest generated on those inmate funds. It hardly ever happens, but.
Well, apparently it hasn't happened before, and it's not about to happen through
$2 revenue.
2020. Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Doing our best.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Going back to the issue of the forfeitures, you know, we've got a budgeted amounts into the future at a stable $15,000. Yet the sheriff indicated that those forfeitures have been declining, potentially on a steady basis over the last couple of years due to some changes. So this is more to finance, but is it appropriate to continue to budget out or forecast a steady revenue based on those forfeitures, or should we adjust that? It's more of an accounting thing, but.
It is. It's just there strictly for forecasting purposes as kind of a bookmark, if you would. It's very difficult to budget forfeitures because we don't know when the sheriff's department is going to get forfeited assets and how much those will be. So obviously, without knowing exactly what those will be, we just put a flat amount in there year over year.
I understand it's not a major thing, but it does. If we are looking at forecasted amounts in the future, and I know Chair Smith has pointed out that sometimes those forecasts we oftentimes might rely on or assume them to be based on something more than a placeholder. So just something to consider moving forward is maybe adjust that as the laws have changed and that sort of thing. The other point I'd like to make is, I guess to finance, but also to my colleagues, you know, it's interesting to me that with the, I guess you could say 401k or whatever you might call it, the pension bonus that we're saving, every department is getting a reduction in the cost for pensions based on that change in policy. And it would seem to me that would make it a lot easier for each department to come in with a number for the next year that is a modest increase at or below the rate of inflation. The sheriff department certainly has done that. You know, based on my initial math here, it's a 1.5% increase. I don't know what inflation is this year, but it's probably something along the neighborhood of 2.5%, or something along those lines. So for department to come in below the rate of inflation, I think is an expectation, especially when we've got that kind of a cost saving that's built into retirement. So what do we do with that extra revenue, that is coming in as a result of that change in pension policies? In this case, it looks like we are being asked to spend it by hiring a few new folks and increasing the budget a little bit in what seems to be a reasonable amount. So I would hope that that standard we could look at with all the other departments. You're getting a bonus this year. We're having a savings on retirement because of that policy change. You're getting an automatic increase, so to speak. So if you're going to go above and beyond the rate of inflation, you better have a really good reason why. Now, we're going to have some of those reasons with road department, for example, because there's a new tax at the federal or state level that's funding roads, and it's going to put more money into that budget. So I guess I just want to point out that we should be aware of that retirement change, aware that it creates opportunities for us to enhance other areas of the budget, appreciate our finance department and our sheriff for actually presenting a budget below the rate of inflation while still addressing what I hope are some of the needs that he needs to do his job and the department do their job. And I think that I'll be looking at that with every department that comes up. How are they using that benefit from the pension change? And are they spending below the rate at or below the rate of inflation like the rest of the entities in the county, in the state, in the private sector are doing? So that's sort of more of a diatribe than a question. But thank you.
Commissioner Sauger.
Just got one comment. I'd like to say thanks to Liz Darga, the undersheriff, and the captains for assisting the sheriff with your presentation, because I knew it took a lot of work. You got a great staff, and thank you.
I do, and I had to tell them no, because they brought those wish lists
Okay.
forward. I said, whoa, hold on a minute here. I'm the guy that's going to get beat up here. So, no, they do a great job. Make my life easy. Thank you, Marv.
And Liz Darga, did I read correctly, that you just celebrated 30 years? Congratulations. Thank you. Great.
Thank you. Is there a motion to receive and file? Moved by Leonetti, supported by Romano. Please vote on your iPad.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is 7D, the Community Corrections Budget Overview. We have Barb Caskey.